Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today's first video. We're going to have a look at the long-range JMA model for today's first video. Just a quick look at the next 3 months. It's going to take us from April through to June with the Japanese model. Later on, we'll have a look at next week to 10 days in detail. Before we get on with the video, just say about the website. It is coming from the long-range JMA season model. You can find the link to that on the links page, so you can check out these charts for yourself if you would like to do that. Remember, long-range forecasting and long-range modelling is always very experimental, so it's not to be relied upon. It's just a snapshot of what the model is showing this month for the next 3 months. So we're going to start off with April. We'll start off with the Northern Hemisphere view down. So we're looking from the pole down into mid-latitudes, and then we'll have a look at the corresponding, and it's 500 millibar height, so we'll have a look at the corresponding temperature and precipitation anomalies that go with these pressure patterns in a moment. So just so that you know where everybody is, this is the North Pole up here. That's the top of the North Pole. That's America over there. Asia is over here, and Europe and the UK just there. So now we know where everybody is. Let's get on with it. And we're starting off with April, as I say. The 500 millibar height anomaly for April shows that we've got a trough in the Atlantic, below average heights there, and then we've got a ridge down to the south. We've also got ridging up to the north as well, so there is northern blocking, but it's not in a position to be delivering cold weather to us, because what's actually happening here is that we're bringing in a west-southwesterly flow. Looks like quite an unsettled month, to be honest. As I said, I'll have a look at the temperature, precipitation, anomalies in a moment. That looks like quite an unsettled Atlantic-driven month, particularly so for the north and the west. It's a fairly mild month as well, because the air is coming up from the southwest. So it's all Atlantic-driven. It's pretty unsettled. There'll be a lot of April showers around with that. But the plus side, the corresponding side, is that it would also be a fairly mild, if not quite warm, perhaps at times, type month. Now we go through to May 2017, and we get a bit of a change in May. We've got ridging out to the west of the country this time. Also still have the ridging down to the south, but it's more in towards the southeast of Europe. It's a very complicated looking pattern, and then near normal heights here through northern and western parts of Europe. But that actually looks like it should probably be a little bit of a trough, and we should probably be getting something a bit like that going with the flow and the jet stream. So this could be a cooler month as we're going through into May. It looks like we might have more influences from the east or the northeast, which of course is not a particularly warm direction for the wind at any time of year, but particularly so around the spring, because the temperature in the North Sea is just about at its coolest. So that could be, I think it's a fairly dryish month. It's not as unsettled as what we see in April, I wouldn't have thought. But although it's a bit dry, it's probably also a bit cooler as well, with maybe even slightly colder than average temperatures being favoured there. And then we go through to June. This is 3 months away. It's a long way out, but this is looking like we're getting the summer off to a very decent start. We've got a big ridge of above average heights around the country, extending down into northwestern parts of Europe. I think that with that ridge there, just to our west, we're probably bringing the air in from an easterly direction. So that's going to be quite warm, especially later on. Early in June, easterlies can be fairly cloudy, cool affairs, but as you get through further into the summer, they can actually become surprisingly warm, those easterly winds. By the time you get through to August, easterly winds can be very hot. In June, that's not quite the case, but it can, particularly later in June, be very warm with the winds coming in from the east. So I think that suggests that we get off to a pretty warm and notably dry start, I would have thought, to the summer. Let's have a look at how this all plays out in terms of temperature and precipitation then, and we'll start off coming back to April. This is the mid-latitude and tropical view. So this is the equator just here, of course, down in the tropics. We've got the southern hemisphere on the southern side of the equator, and the northern hemisphere is on the northern side of the equator. We don't see the polar regions with these charts, but the South Pole is down there, and the North Pole, we're just looking from the North Pole down with the first charts that we was just looking at. The North Pole is up here again off the chart, and the British Isles is over here in the top right hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. Europe is over there, and America is just there. So now, again, that we know where everybody is, let's come back and see what pressure pattern was for April. So we see, it looks like an unsettled month. We've got the trough of low pressure in the Atlantic, we've got a ridge down to the south of the country as well, and the flow is very Atlantic driven, so it's west-southwesterly. Looks like it's an unsettled but probably fairly mild month. So let's have a look at precipitation, and that is coming out, as you'd expect in quite an Atlantic driven month, it's coming out wetter than average with the precipitation for April. We are currently going through a very dry period, so I'm not at all sure about that, even though it's just 1 month away. It looks a little bit over the top to me. It's been quite a while since we've had a significantly wetter than average month. Of course, it's possible we might deviate from the pattern we've had recently and have a wet April, but a little bit dubious about that from the get-go, really. Temperature anomalies for April are coming out milder than average. You expect that. It's a west-south-westerly pattern, so you expect a pretty warmish month. The mean wind direction, always a job to make these out, but the black arrow showing where the wind direction is coming from, and you'll see that it is more or less west-south-westerly. So that's why the temperatures are mild. It's also why it's an unsettled month as well. Now we go through to May, and that one looks slightly different, or rather significantly different. Actually, we've got above average heights out to our west and to our northwest. It looks like we should be bringing in a bit more of a northeasterly, easterly type flow in May. Now, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, but precipitation anomaly is still above average. So I did wonder whether we might actually, although the heights are near normal, whether there might actually be sort of a trough extending through this zone. And, well, that appears to be what the model is predicting, to be honest, because it's still coming out on the wetter than average side there in May. The temperature anomaly is still coming out more or less milder than average, but it is a little bit cold. It's a job to make it out, but if I was to zoom right in, you would see that for England and Wales particularly, it is ever so slightly on the cooler than average side. And again, I think that's because we're bringing in more of an influence from the east and the northeast. So May looks a fairly poorish month, really, to be honest. And the mean wind flow and mean wind direction is coming sort of north. It's more sort of northeasterly. So a fairly cool and unsettled month, really, is the signal as we move through into May. And then we go to June, and it's different again. Notice all 3 months we've got different patterns, which is quite interesting. A lot of variability from month to month. So for June, it's 3 months away, so it's not really worth worrying about. But we have this big ridge sitting out to our west, and we're probably bringing in an influence from the east, which would be fairly dry, or maybe even very dry, and potentially quite warm as well. The precipitation anomaly is going on to the drier than average side. Perhaps not quite as much as you'd expect, given the 500 millibar height anomaly, but it is on the drier than average side, so I've got a drying trend there as we're going through to the start of summer. And the temperature anomaly is also coming out milder than average. The mean wind direction is easterly in June, so the black arrows, again, always difficult to make these out, but the black arrows are coming in from the east. And as I say, in early June, that can drag in a lot of cloud from off the North Sea, and particularly for eastern coastal counties. easy winds in June can be quite disappointing. Out in the west, you tend to get more sunshine. But as you progress through the month, what tends to happen is that you burn the cloud off increasingly quickly. So by the time you get through to sort of the final week to 10 days of June, easterly winds can actually be surprisingly hot, and can also produce a lot of sunshine. Then as you get further on into summer, if those easterly winds persist into July and August, they can become very hot winds from the east. And a lot of the hottest summers tend to have a lot of easterly winds. So thinking of years such as 1976 and 1995, they were very hot, very dry summers, and the wind tended to be often coming in from the east. Not in any way suggesting we're going to have anything like that for this summer. Just because we get easy winds in June, we might see a complete flip in July and August and revert to a cold, wet, northwesterly type pattern. So, not in any way suggesting we're going to have a classic 76 or 95 type summer. Just pointing out that the kind of weather that easy winds produce at the start of the summer tends to be rather different by the time you get later on into the summer. So that's how the next 3 months are looking with the JMA. As I say, a lot of variability from month to month. April is Atlantic-driven, showery and quite mild. May looks also fairly showery, but it's a cooler type setup with wind more from the northeast. And then we get through to June. It looks very dry, potentially in June. A lot of high pressure and winds from the east, meaning that we probably started off on the coolish side, and if they was to persist later into June, you would expect it to turn significantly warmer. Right, later on this afternoon, we'll be looking at the next week to 10 days in detail. So come back for that this afternoon. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.